Roy Williams is a marketing man. His clients want to buy whatever advertising sells the most product.
It's Rick Dees in the morning. All communication should be poetic. Bring him in, please. Roy Williams!
Essential to any company is the ability to get your message out. My guest says, don't give up hope. Joining me now is Roy Williams.
Yes, so how do you speak in poetry to people and get them to do things you want them to do?
Here to talk about the advantages of radio advertising is the author of a new book called The Wizard of Ads.
Joining me is Roy Williams. Today we're talking about his book, Secret Formulas of the Wizard of Ads. This is one of the most important books that anybody can read.
What makes people do the things they do? More importantly, how can we get people to do what we want them to do? With another part of the answer to that question, here's the Wizard of Ads, Roy H. Williams.
We're going to talk about the 12 most common mistakes in advertising. I've gathered these from my own observations over the past 22 years, but they seem to be extremely consistent. Now, the single biggest mistake made by advertisers in America today is a function of the hectic pace of our society. Now, it is contrary to all the known laws of the universe, but it is endemic to our society. You see, the single greatest mistake made by advertisers today is their desire for instant gratification. When an advertiser wants to hold their advertising immediately accountable, when they treat an advertising investment as though they were putting a quarter in a gumball machine, you put in your money, you crank the handle, and out come the results. That is not how advertising works, yet every advertiser wishes that were how advertising works. And they work hard to try to figure out some way to make advertising function like that. And there are huge ad firms that have built their reputations on figuring out how to stack the deck, load the dice, beat the system, rig the roulette wheel so that your winning number will come up more often than not. It is still not the highest and best use of your ad money. Craving instant gratification might be what comes naturally to you, but it is against all known laws of the universe. You see, if you were feeling sluggish and lethargic and a little tired and achy and didn't have any energy, and you said to your doctor, you know, I just feel bad, and he examined you and he said, you know what you need? Your only problem is you're not eating right and you're not exercising. You need to get control of what you're eating and how much you eat and when you eat, and you need to start working out. Okay, you're the doc. Now, chances are you're going to come back in 6 or 8 weeks hungry and sore. And you're going to say to your doctor, you know, I felt better when I was eating wrong and not exercising. Now, if the doctor was spineless, like most people in advertising, the doctor would say, oh, you want the feel-good right now plan. Here, we'll do a remote broadcast. Here, let's have a sale. No, if the doctor was spineless, he'd say, oh, you want the feel-good right now plan? Here, snort this white powder up your nose. You're going to feel like Superman in 2 seconds. Right now, bam. You're going to feel great. Here, stick this needle in your arm. Now, wait a minute. That's a scary thought. But why is it more scary when you're worried about destroying your physical health than when you're considering destroying your business health? You see, anything that pays off immediately, anything, always works less and less well the longer you do it. It's true in advertising. It's true in Aesop's fables of the little boy that cried wolf. The little boy one day goes to the edge of the village and he cries, sail, sail, and the whole village comes running. And so he goes, oh, I have discovered the secret of how to get rich quick. Watch this. I'll double the price and then cry, half price, and everybody will come running and I'll make a fortune. Well, you know, that worked for the little boy until the public figured out he was a lying little bastard. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. I'm not disparaging those businesses who mark it up to mark it down. We know who they are, and we quit shopping there when they cry, sale, sale, or at least Most of us did. You see, those advertisers are coming to our firm saying, what's working now? What's the new gimmick? You see, that deal's not working like it used to. What's the next plan? And I'm going, the next plan is be good at what you do. Have a story to tell, and tell it all day, every day to anybody that'll listen. And hope they think of you first and feel good about you when they need what it is you sell. That's the new plan. Well, what if you're not good at what you do? Then get out of business. You see, the desire for instant gratification is the biggest mistake made by advertisers nationwide. And Harvard did a study on brand loyalty that kind of plays into this psychology, and it was very interesting. They said there are 3 types of consumers, and each of us are all 3 types. We are non-switchable in some product categories, switchable in other product categories, and we are switchable for the reasons of price alone in still yet other product categories. Let's say that perhaps Garrett here is non-switchable in his brand of coffee. There's nothing you can do, and there's nothing you can say to cause him to switch brands. But let's say he is switchable in his brand of, what are you switchable in, Garrett?
Shaving cream.
Shaving cream. Garrett is switchable in his brand of shaving cream. He's not looking for another shaving cream. He's content with his shaving cream. But if you said the right thing and kept saying it, according to Harvard, until he finally, said, I think maybe I'll try that. He wouldn't switch quickly, but he's switchable. If you say the right thing and do the right thing and keep after him long enough, he'll try your product, and if, in fact, it delivers what it was promised, he'll switch. That'll be a great customer. Now, Garrett is probably switchable for reasons of price alone in at least one product category. Maybe it's soft drinks. Maybe he really doesn't care as long as it's sweet and fizzy. And he just buys whatever's cheapest. Now, here's what's interesting. The Harvard study said, whatever you do, never build your business based upon the customer who's switchable for reasons of price alone. Because that customer will switch from you just as quickly as they switched to you for the same reason. And there's nothing that someone cannot make a little worse and sell a little cheaper. Now, they said, and they weren't trying to make a statement about advertising trends. They were simply studying non-switchable, switchable, and switchable for reasons of price alone. Now, the trend has always been to appeal to the customer who is switchable for reasons of price alone. Why? Because they'll switch quickest. Stupid, 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 stupid. Instant gratification always goes for what works quickly, and when you have a sale and it works great, and you get into a sales chart that looks like having a sale, not having a sale, having a sale, not having a sale. Pretty soon the peaks are less high and the valleys are a little deeper. And then the peaks are less high and the valleys are still yet deeper. And pretty soon the boy has cried wolf so many times that he can cry at the top of his lungs and nobody pays any attention. Now, that's happened all over America. The desire for instant gratification is dangerous in physiology. You see, drugs work less and less well the longer you use them. It takes a bigger dose and you get less high. Now, eating right and exercising, the longer you do it, the better it works. And it never quits getting better. You get stronger and more energetic and stronger and more energetic, and there's no limit. You can get bigger and stronger and healthier the longer you work out, the more pain you endure, the more patience you have. Patience, pain, discipline. Yes, there's a price for success. It is a law of the universe. Now, I wish that more advertisers had the mentality of the American farmer. The American farmer never puts seed in the ground and then comes back the next morning and says, this ain't working. I must be using the wrong soil or the wrong seed or something because this ain't working. I was promised a crop. You see, the farmers never do that because they understand the law of seed time and harvest. Seed time and harvest. He understands he's going to plant that seed and faithfully water that seed, and day after day after day after day believe that things are changing that he cannot yet see. Now, one day, this farmer sees a little fuzz on his field, this little green fuzz, and he says, well, this ain't working. I'm getting some results, but it's not enough to just... No, he doesn't do that. The advertiser does that. I'm seeing some results, but it's not enough to justify all this money and all this time. Most advertisers get to the point of breakthrough. When they do the right thing, they get right to the point of breakthrough and then bail out. Saw some results, but not near enough. See, farmers are smart. Just about the time they were willing to give up and think nothing's going to happen, they see that little green fuzz and they know what it is. It's the promise of things to come. And they know if I'll stick with it and keep watering this and keep the weeds away from it and work it, that it'll grow and grow and grow and grow, and pretty soon I've got an incredible business here. That's the way it works. Now, the desire for instant gratification is the big one. It comes in all kinds of forms. There's another study that was done by a university. It took 7 years, 2,500 pages in the finished report. And they actually monitored the impact of advertising on several hundred small businesses. They were looking for cause and effect, cause and effect. They were trying to scientifically understand, if you spend this much money, what will you get in return? How much dollars in advertising would you get how much result? After 7 years, 2,500 pages, they had 3 conclusions, just 3. Conclusion number 1, there is no direct correspondence between dollars invested and results gained. How much you spend and what you get in return, there's just no formula for connecting those two. You see, conclusion number 2 was, it appears to depend on what the ad says. Duh. It's what you say, stupid. 2 people reach the same loyal audience, the same loyal readership, the same loyal viewership of a TV show. 2 people both reach the same target customer, spend the same amount of money, have the same degree of repetition to that target customer. One speaks to the taste of the meat in the heart of the dog. He talks to the customer about something that the customer cares about, and he gets rich. The other advertiser spends just as much money and answers all the questions no one was asking, and he gets nothing. Now, whose fault was that? It was the CEO for creating a stupid product and the ad writer for telling him it was going to work. But the point is, it wasn't the fault of the media. You know who's going to get the blame? The media. You don't have loyal listeners. You don't have responsive readers. You don't whatever, because the lie has been told for too many years that reaching the right people is the secret. You've got to reach the right people. This is what the direct mail industry was built on. We have a list of the right people. But even in direct mail, you've got to say the right thing. It's shocking how many people become the right people when you say the right thing. And it's shocking how the right people become the wrong people when you say something they're not interested in. Now, most advertisers have begun at least one really great ad campaign and then chickened out. The chickening out period usually falls between week 8 and week 14. As a matter of fact, in a room full of advertisers, I always see heads bobbing up and down. Had this really great idea one time, and it was exactly 3 months into it that we pulled the ripcord. Why? Because just like the farmer sees the little bitty fuzz on the ground, all kind of breaks through the soil together, and it matures together, advertising is like that, you see. When you have finally convinced the average person, you've convinced a whole lot of people because everyone's average. When you start seeing results, the second guy is right behind the first guy. And it takes a certain amount of repetition to convince anybody. And then, the longer you have repetition, the more people convinced. And then, you not only have to convince them to remember you when they have need, you have to wait for them to have need. You cannot create need at your convenience just because you got your second or third invoice from your media provider. Okay? Now, the ad tip is, uncover the story that is uniquely and wonderfully your own. Uncover your own unique selling proposition. Focus your campaign, commit to your message, become category dominant. The most common mistake, number 2, is attempting to reach more people than the budget will allow. There is this horrible temptation to reach everyone. And if you don't have the money to reach everyone, then you're going to reach too many people with too little repetition, and fail miserably. The right thing to do is to reach no more people than you can afford to reach relentlessly. Now, reach is simply the number of people who will hear your message. Frequency is the number of times they will hear it in a specified period of time, typically 1 week. The question is this: would you rather reach 100% of the people and convince them 10% of the way? Or would you rather reach 10% of the people and convince them 100% of the way? You see, it costs the same amount of money. Most advertisers, in trying to reach all the people, convince very few. And if they would say, you know, I only have the money to reach 10% of the city, but that 10% of the city belongs to me. I'm going to own them. I'm going to be the first company they think of, and I'm going to be the one they feel the best about when their moment of need arises. I'm going to implant an associative memory, and I'm going to tend it and water it and cultivate it, and I'm just going to wait until they need what I do or until they bump into somebody who needs what I do. Because I'm going to own the number of people that I can afford to own. That is a smart advertiser. That's an advertiser who will not fail but will grow and thrive. You do not find very many of them. Most of them want to reach everyone, and they want to see results now. If you cannot afford sufficient repetition during prime time, buy off-prime. There's such thing as a station within a station. Whenever we first began advertising in Los Angeles for one of our most successful clients in America, we put him on the air on radio stations only between 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. This is not prime time. 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. But by golly, if you were out after dark, we owned you. Now, radio listenership is down by about 2/3. There's only about 1/3 as many people listening at night. But we owned them. And 1/3 of 14 million people is more than enough to make you rich. Now, very few advertisers would have the courage to take the advice that we gave Steve and Skip Robbins. Guys, you can't afford enough repetition in daytime radio, so we're going to own them at night, boys. And then the company became very strong, very healthy, and we decided to own them on Sundays, too. Radio listenership isn't as big on Sunday as it is Monday through Saturday, but by golly, they'll sell it to you worth the money. And so we ran a spot an hour every Sunday from 6 a.m. till midnight. Did you know, having never run a daytime spot, these brothers became so extraordinarily category dominant that in the 5th year after creating this company from scratch and having never advertised anywhere except late night radio and Sunday radio, they funded a statistically accurate outcall survey in which a Los Angeles-based research firm called households and said, who do you think of when we say the word engagement rings? 68% of the people immediately said, Robbins Brothers, the world's biggest engagement ring stores. There was no such thing as Robbins Brothers 5 years previously, but the message was focused. When you're ready to get married, come to Robbins Brothers, because we have the biggest selection of engagement rings in the world. 10,000 square feet of nothing but engagement rings. We have every engagement ring ever designed, and we have every size, shape, color, quality, and price range of diamond that there is imaginable. As a matter of fact, if you came to Robbins Brothers and looked at each ring for 1 minute and never looked at the same ring twice, it would take you 69 hours and 37 minutes to get out of a store. Robbins Brothers, the world's biggest engagement ring stores. Now, I don't do the ads. The brothers themselves do the ads, and they're far more charming than I. And a large percentage of the ads have a certain amount of wit, humor, and you just love these guys. You like the guys. And besides, they've been riding in the back seat on every date you've been on for the past 5 years. If you're out after dark, you got Skip and Steve Robbins riding with you, saying, hey, up there in front, if you guys ever decide to tie the knot, come to Robbins Brothers, the world's biggest engagement ring store. She'll laugh, she'll cry, you'll kiss a grand goodbye. And so, they don't say that, but it's the kind of thing they should. And what happened is 68% unaided recall. Bam! Having never advertised during morning or afternoon drive or middays or any of the primetime radio. Why did we not? Couldn't afford it. 68% unaided recall. That's like Coca-Cola. That's like McDonald's. That is staggering, legendary. The people that did the survey said we've never seen anything like it. It was a product of what? Focus and commitment, a willingness to be known for something, to put all your eggs in one basket and then guard that basket. Your message is like a nail. Repetitions of your ad are like the strokes of a hammer, and the mind of the customer is like an aged piece of very old, hard, dense oak lumber. The goal, through repetitions, tap, 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 is to drive the nail, the message, into the mind, the board. Now, there's a problem. Our goal is to drive the nail through the board and clench it on the other side. These are the ads you remember for a lifetime and will literally take to your grave. However, repetition is essential because retention fades with sleep. Retention of an ad fades with sleep. Sleep, God's gift to humanity to wash, purge, and cleanse the mind of all the noise of the day. And advertising is part of that noise. You see, the ratio of ad repetition to customer sleep is critical. And in general, based upon an ad of average impact, an average, convincing but not overwhelming ad, the identical person needs to be confronted with the identical information 3 times within 7 nights' sleep. And this needs to happen every 7 nights until retention becomes permanent. And that takes a long time. The customer does not remain convinced any longer than the grass stays mowed. The customer doesn't stay sold. The customer doesn't stay reached any better than the lawn stays mowed. And so the advertiser who says, well, we've already reached these people, let's reach some new ones. Well, he's just an idiot. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. You see, sleep will erase and undo all your advertising has done. One of the most dangerous things in the world is to advertise once a month. If you allow, oh, we advertise 1 week a month, real big, then we take off 3 weeks. Well, there you go. There's a plan. Let's always make sure that we don't have enough consistency, that we always give the audience enough time to completely forget the groundwork we laid so that we can always start from ground zero. I'm not saying there won't be any retention. I'm just saying that if you're going to gain momentum, you need the identical person to hear the identical ad approximately 3 times every 7 nights.
Let's enjoy a brief intermission before we start part 2 of this section.
And now let's take a look at part 2 of the 12 most common mistakes in advertising.
The third most common mistake is assuming the business owner knows best. You see, a business owner is actually uniquely unqualified to know what to say to his customer. The business owner, by definition, is an expert in their business. And as an expert, they will tend to answer all the questions no one was asking. They will talk about color, cut, clarity, and carat weight, when the customer only wanted to see that look on her face. And he gets all frightened and concerned and scared when he starts hearing that there's way more complicated than that. You mean I just can't buy one that looks pretty and she'll love it? Oh, no. You might make a horrible mistake. You need an education. I think I'll just buy her some flowers and candy instead. I'm qualified to buy flowers and candy. Here's what happens. Assuming the business owner knows best, ask the jeweler how to sell jewelry. Stupid. To ask the person who sells fertilizer how to sell fertilizer. Well, you see, in your fertilizer, your nitrogen and your phosphorus need to be balanced in a pH-controlled environment. Hold it. His customer isn't really looking for fertilizer at all now, is he? His customer wants green grass. We don't really want fertilizer. As a matter of fact, I think it was Zig Ziglar or somebody said, that Black & Decker sells like a zillion quarter-inch drill bits every year, but nobody's ever wanted a quarter-inch drill bit. They all want quarter-inch holes. You can't lose sight of that. You see, the business owner is unqualified to tell you how to advertise his product because it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle, and every business owner is, in fact, inside the bottle. You cannot see yourself real when you're on the inside looking out. It takes the perspective of someone who's on the outside looking in, someone who is not an expert in your business. Now, most common mistake number 4 is unsubstantiated claims. Now, most advertisers will make all these claims in an attempt to speak to the felt need of the customer. And they will stand behind and prove and substantiate none of those claims. Now, let's say that there's an insurance company called Parkins and Maddock. If we ask them what they'd like to have in their ads, they would say, oh, we want to tell the public about our fast, fair, free, and friendly insurance review. They need to invite us into their home so we can get them in a headlock, convince them they're underinsured, and not leave until they switch all their insurance to us. And all they'll have to do is skip dinner, not watch any TV, and spend a couple hours searching all over their home for their insurance policy. Sounds like fun. That's what Parkins and Maddock would want, even though it's not what they would say to you. Well, I don't want to put my dog in that fight. I don't want to be the guy that promises Parkins and Maddock we're going to have people call up and invite them in the home for a fast, fair, free, and friendly insurance review. Now, most advertising people would also try to steer them away from that because they know it just isn't going to happen. But they probably would compromise and they would placate Parkins and Maddock with an ad that went like this. Now, I'm going to read what the ad actually says. You're going to read the words in red. Now, the words in red, you're going to read silently because those are the thoughts that the listener is thinking during this ad. The ad says,
since 1952, hundreds of families have trusted their insurance needs to the caring professionals at Parkins and Maddock because competitive pricing is a Parkins and Maddock specialty. And they're known for their fast, fair, and friendly service. So when you need auto, home, health, life, or any other type of insurance, find out how much Parkins and Maddock can save you by calling them at 862-3791. That number again is 862-3791. Parkins and Maddock is open weekdays till 7 for your convenience, and until 4 on Saturdays but closed on Sundays. Find out for yourself why hundreds of families trust Parkins and Maddock year after year. Call Parkins and Maddock today at 862-3791. You'll be glad you did.
you see, Parkins and Maddock would get name recognition, and that's really valuable if you're running for public office. And the only thing you need to be is known a little better than the next guy. Advertising for name recognition even works in business when you have name recognition and none of your competitors do. See, in the absence of a good plan, even a stupid plan works. Seriously. There's a lot of advertising that is successful only because the other advertisers are even more stupid than this advertiser. Now, heaven help you if you ever come across somebody like Robbins Brothers, who planted their flag on top of a mountain, and they're defending that mountain with machine guns against all comers. We will occupy Engagement Ring Mountain in Southern California, and we will fight to the death if you think you're going to challenge us for it. And we're going to go after, and we're going to win the hearts of the people before they need engagement rings. And we're going to be the people they think of immediately when they say, will you marry me? Bang. Specifics are more believable and more persuasive than generalities. This is the ad Parkins and Maddock should have run. Parkins and Maddock will cut the cost of your insurance by at least 10%, or buy you dinner at the Plaza del Fuego. All it takes is a 3-minute phone call, and there's no one you have to meet. So the next time you reach in your mailbox and pull out, we're going to plant a recall cue with the sound of a Chinese gong. We're going to describe a moment that we know the customer will experience in his life. We just don't know when. We're going to describe this moment relentlessly. We're going to describe this moment daily. We're going to describe this moment so accurately in the language of the customer. We're going to describe how he feels about this moment. And we're going to wait until this moment happens. And we're going to put a recall cue right here. The recall cue is the sound of a Chinese gong. And the announcer saying, with all the detestable contempt he can muster, the insurance renewal. So the next time you reach in your mailbox and pull out, bong, the insurance renewal, walk straight to the phone and call Parkins & Matic. Read them the limits and deductibles printed on the notice, and they will immediately name the price at which they can give you identical coverage, apples for apples. If the Parkins & Matic price isn't at least 10% lower, you're off to the Plaza del Fuego. You're going to have to write someone a check. Why not write a smaller one to Parkins & Matic? Now, the day that ad started running, the phones would not likely ring. People would not yet be convinced. They haven't heard it often enough. They didn't understand it the first time they heard it. But the longer we describe, so the next time you reach in your mailbox, there's going to come a day that people begin to remember. Now notice, there's no phone number in this ad. There's no yap, yap, yap about how long we've been in business or what wonderful people we are. Okay? Who's this ad about? It's about the customer. And this is one of those instances when he's more interested in saving money than in saving time. He's not giving either insurance company any time. And so in the absence of saving time with either one of them, saving money is going to be what it's all about. We recognize that. It's one of the choices we made. Now, if he would let this ad run long enough, after a number of months, he would have to hire extra help because the telephones would be dancing on the desktops day after day after day. He couldn't have people answering the phones fast enough and looking up competitive quotes because he would convince everyone. He would plant that recall cue in their brain, the experience, the picture in their mind of reaching in the mailbox and, oh, God, there it is again. Didn't I just pay this? The insurance renewal. Talk to the dog in the language of the dog. Describe the moment the way the customer feels about that moment. And then wait for the moment to happen. It might be months before the moment happens, but the longer they hear the ad before it happens, the more likely they are to call when it does happen. Year number 2 would work even better than year number 1. Yes, specifics are more persuasive than generalities. Make a claim, substantiate the claim. Number 5 is improper use of passive media. Now, we've already talked about the intrusive, invasive, and irresistible nature of sound. Television and radio can convince you, or at least influence you, against your will when you're paying no attention, because they use sound. Outlawed by the federal government January 1st, 1971, for purposes of selling tobacco. But they did not outlaw passive media, billboards, newspapers, magazines, and direct mail. Those can be used effectively, however. There is a time and a place for all these things, and it's when your message has already been delivered through intrusive media. If you were going to put up billboards for Motel 6, and you were simply going to trigger a memory of all the radio ads that Tom Bodette has done for these past 14 years, would you need the Motel 6 logo on the billboard? How about just a black billboard, and in white letters, in quotation marks, would be the phrase, "We'll leave the light on for you." Thank you. And all you would have to see is that phrase, "We'll leave the light on for you." Black billboard, white letters, and the vast majority of citizens would immediately imagine Motel 6, Tom Bodette. They would come to all these conclusions on their own, and guess what? The conclusion the customer comes to on their own is always more powerful than the one you tried to present them. As a matter of fact, James Michener, the author, one of the most legendary authors of all time, told his friend, William Lederer, the author of The Ugly American, that only sold 6 million copies in 1959. He said, "Bill, I know this is a true story, but you need to rewrite the book before you send it to the publisher, because the public is more willing to believe fiction than nonfiction." Bill Lederer told me recently that he changed it because Jim Michener was such a great writer, and he believed what Jim Michener told him. And the book went on to sell 6 million copies and change foreign policy in North America to this very day. John F. Kennedy was so taken by the book when he was a senator that he bought a copy for every member of Congress. My point is this: the public is willing to accept and experience in their mind. The public is not challenged by what is presented without threat. We'll leave the light on for you. No logo. It's not an ad. They're not trying to sell me anything. They're just reminding me of something. You put on the Motel 6 logo, bam. You've damaged the credibility. Now you're trying to sell something. It comes against the intellectual filter. Just like James Michener said, don't do that. Don't go up against the intellectual filter. Go straight to the emotion. We're just going to leave the light on for you. You know who we are. That's friendly. Do you have the courage to plant the message with intrusive media and only use passive media to reinforce what's already been planted through intrusive, emotion-laden, emotion-packed media? Now, most common mistake number 6 is creating ads instead of campaigns. Most advertisers, like the beer company we discussed earlier, don't really have a campaign. Motel 6 had a campaign. The ads were all connected like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. They had a common denominator, a theme, a message, and they stayed true. The beer company, first we're going to do less filling tastes great, and then we're going to go off some other direction, then we're going to go off still yet some other direction. We're just going to sail around in circles. Doesn't work very well. As no single brick can be a fortress, no single ad can be a campaign, every advertiser has more to be said than can be said in a single ad. It takes a series of ads, but they must be connected. Make a campaign. Most common mistake number 7 is obedience to unwritten rules. Every business owner, for some reason, follows an unwritten code in his industry. Nothing could be more foolish. If you're going to lead, you have to go where none has gone before. If you're going to be a follower, do not expect to see interesting new sights. Why are advertisers happy when their ads sound like ads? Oddly enough, in the Parkins and Matic insurance ads of a few moments ago, Parkins and Matic would probably have liked the first ad better, the chest-thumping ad. Since 1952, Parkins and Matic, blah, 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 blah. Most common mistake number 8, late week schedules. To try to reach the customer just before they go shopping. Well, the customer shops in my store on a Saturday, and so I want to reach her on Friday. Well, you see, if you're waiting until this Friday to try to influence the customer for what she's going to do on Saturday, that's just sad. She should have decided months ago where she was going to buy this when she needed it. You should have won her heart long before now. You want to be a face in the crowd? You want to wait till Friday and to see if you can yell louder than the next guy? Yeah, go ahead. You see, what's interesting about late week advertising is there's no more people listening to the radio or reading the newspaper or watching TV. There's only more ads. Why in the world would you pay extra to reach listeners on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday when you could have had them all to yourself on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday? You really need to reach the customer long before they need what it is you sell. Now, tell the customer why to buy from your advertiser, and then wait for when they need the advertiser. If the advertiser is committed to that process and is willing to advertise before the moment of need and not try to predict the need, it works out better for everyone. Most common mistake number 9, assuming the decision maker is the only person you need to reach. Decision maker targeting, I think, was a myth perpetuated by all the sales trainers. Never waste your time on somebody who's not a decision maker. Gee, that's stupid. That is so excruciatingly stupid that it hurts me to think about it. I have actually heard sales trainers talk about how if the receptionist won't put you through the boss, here's all these ways to subtly threaten to get her fired. Well, who shall I tell Mr. Williams chose not for him to, you know. Yeah, right. One difference. You try that with Greta, our front desk person. Greta has calm assurance of one thing. She knows me, you don't. She's my friend, and I care about her, you're not. Any fool that ever bribed, badgered, or threatened the receptionist to try to get to the boss is just stupid. Same thing is true in advertising when you assume that that decision maker must be reached at all costs, and that you have to reach that decision maker or you're wasting your time. You see, McDonald's didn't do that. McDonald's didn't target the person behind the wheel of the car, the decision maker who decided what drive-through to pull into. They targeted the kid in the back seat, the inside champion. You see, McDonald's said, hey, we're going to reach these kids on Saturday morning, and we're going to talk to them about how we believe there should be a toy with every hamburger. And so the kid knows the decision maker. And the kid will fly into action as our champion when the decision maker is about to make a decision. You don't have to reach Papa behind the wheel. You reach the kid in the back seat, you're fine. The term is called realm of association. Let's say that you decided you could only reach 10% of your city with your ad budget. But you're going to own that 10%. And let's say that all these decision makers weren't necessarily in that 10%. Every person, each of us, has a realm of association of 250 friends, family, co-workers, people that we associate with on a daily basis. 250 people care enough about you to come to your wedding, come to your funeral, or have a first-name relationship with you, care what you have to say, ask about your well-being, listen to your advice. 250 people, and they have that kind of relationship into your life. Now, if I reach 10% of the city but I don't reach you, I've still reached 25 of all your friends. I've reached 25 of your closest friends. I've reached 10% of the 250 people in your realm of association. If I say the right thing, guess what? The right message somehow always finds its way to the right person. That's what word-of-mouth advertising is. Word-of-mouth advertising is the result of someone, anyone, being deeply impressed. The goal is to impress deeply. If you are not committed to learning how to impress deeply, please do the world a favor and do not pursue a career in this business called advertising. Now, it is a myth that the decision maker is the only one who matters. The truth is decisions are seldom made in a vacuum. Most common mistake number 10 is event-driven marketing. It's one more grab for instant gratification. The problem is when the event is over, the message of the ad that promoted that event is erased and deleted from the mind. No one can remember an ad for an event that is over. It's because when the ad is no longer relevant, when the time limit has expired, when the sale is ended, the ad is gone. Now, you know before you ever run the ad that one person out of 200 would be the most you could possibly hope to attend your special event within the time frame that you're advertising it. If one person out of every 200 people reached by your advertising attended your event, you would probably have to hire a traffic cop. That means 99.5% of all your dollars in advertising went down the toilet to no avail. The investment will have no long-term result because the only people that it mattered to were the people willing to respond right away. When there is artificial urgency pumped into an ad, when there's a time limit, when the ad expires, so does the advertiser's investment. When the sale is over Saturday night at 9, so is all memory of the ad. If you have patience to wait for the harvest to come in, you will not fill ads with artificial time limits. My question is this. The advertising schedule should always be exactly for the term the advertiser plans to stay in business. If the advertiser is truly going to leave town Saturday night at 9 and take his show down the road, then he only needs an advertising plan that lasts till Saturday night at 9. That's true of concert promoters and other special events. It's not true of the grocery store, the jewelry store, the car dealer. Oh, so you're telling me if I don't get there before Saturday night at 9, I can't buy a truck from you? If I don't need a truck today, I need one in a month or 6 months. It's like, what are you trying to tell me here, bud? I got to buy a truck now or miss my chance for life? You get the point. Most common mistake number 11 is great production without great copy. Production is the artistic appeal of the ad. One of those smooth, clever, classy ads. You see, slick, clever, funny, creative, and different are the adjectives that advertising professionals very often seek to attain to. As a matter of fact, if your ads are slick, clever, funny, creative, and different, you will probably win all the ad club awards. Unfortunately, those descriptive terms are very poor substitutes for informative, believable, memorable, and persuasive. Most common mistake number 12, and then we're done. This has been a long session. Thank you guys for staying with me. Is confusing response with results. The most important question you will ever ask an advertiser is this: how will you measure success? Will you measure response or will you measure results? You see, if you measure response, if you measure letters in the mail or comments from people, you're most likely going to wind up with ads that are very slick, clever, funny, creative, and different because they're the ones most likely to generate comments or response. If you measure response instead of results, you're very likely to wind up with a little Japanese man and a dog. That's what happened to Nissan. I think the dollars were about $230 million they spent doing a tremendous job entertaining America. Do you remember the little Japanese man and the dog? Didn't sell any Nissans. Nissan sales declined steadily throughout the campaign, but we loved the ads. My favorite, G.I. Joe, downbeat of the drum, opening moment of the ad, falls out of the jaws of the plastic Tyrannosaurus Rex on the top of the boy's chest of drawers. G.I. Joe hits the floor of the bedroom, looks left, looks right, spots a red plastic 300ZX convertible, hops in the convertible, rips right down the hallway, zoom, slides up in front of Barbie Summer Dream House in the bedroom next door. Barbie, on the balcony of Barbie Summer Dream House, looks down, sees G.I. Joe in the red plastic 300ZX convertible. G.I. Joe looks up, does that eyebrow thing. Barbie steps into the elevator of Barbie Summer Dream House, emerges on the bottom floor moments later as only Barbie can, in an entirely different outfit. Barbie then gets in the red plastic 300ZX convertible with G.I. Joe, just as Ken. That little yuppie pencil neck wuss steps out onto the balcony of Barbie Summer Dream House. Ken has his sweater sleeves tied around his little pencil neck. I'm thinking, Ken, that's not a cape. You're not Superman. And yes, you've had this coming for the 30 years I've known you, Ken. That's G.I. Joe down there, buddy. And he's got the convertible. Well, to get back to the story, I love this ad. It was no good as an ad, but it was fabulous as entertainment. And so then, Ken looks down and goes, "Oh, no!" Just like that. I always knew Ken had a voice like that. Just as G.I. Joe rams it in first gear, nails the accelerator, goes ripping back out of the bedroom, zooms back down the hallway in the red plastic 300ZX convertible with Barbie at his side, right between the legs of a little Japanese man holding a Jack Russell Terrier. Now I can hear the ad firm now. Now we did some research. Found out that your Jack Russell, that's your hot dog in America right now. America loves a Jack Russell. America loves a dog in general, but especially a Jack Russell. You see Eddie on Frasier? That's a Jack Russell. Now we got you Jack Russell for your little Japanese man to hold. Little Japanese man, he's going to say, dogs love trucks. One problem. Dogs don't buy trucks, little Japanese man. America loved the ad as long as Nissan was measuring response. And as long as their goal was to entertain America, well, they did a hell of a job. But if they were measuring results, it wasn't such a good campaign. Measuring response instead of results is one of the great mistakes of advertisers nationwide. Those are the 12 most common. Try not to make them.